Live. All right, ready to get started, Ben?
Let's do it.
All right, Ben. So my question to you is, imagine we live in a world where teleportation has been invented. How would you bring it to market?
Awesome. Very cool. I would like to live in this world myself, but teleportation has been invented. How do we bring it to market? Fantastic. So, is it all right if I share my screen so we could sort of follow along in our notes together?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Let's see. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Cool. Can the room see my screen too?
Not yet. All right, can you try sharing it again? Sorry.
Sure. I will stop sharing and then share this. All right. How about now?
Not yet. Jeez.
Okay. If I'll also ping out a link to the Google Doc in case maybe it can be easier if you just pull up that Google Doc and put it up on the screen. You should be able to follow along live even if I'm not sharing my screen.
Yep, on it. All right, there we go.
Cool.
All
All
right,
right, so y'all can see my screen
all good
now.
now.
Fantastic. All right. So in that little interlude, I had a chance to think about a few questions that I wanted to just ask of you so we can get on the same page before we dive in. My first question is, what entity are we? Are we a startup? Are we an established company? Who are we? Hey, sorry, Kevin, are you talking?
Yep, we're all good. All set.
Okay. Can you hear me? I uh-oh. Can you
Oh, sorry. I think all these.
all right. I'm talking. Seems like the Zoom can hear me, so I think they're having AV issues in the room.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Yeah, Kevin, I can hear you now.
All right, awesome. Let me try to figure this out in the meanwhile.
Okay.
That better?
I can hear you great.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you from my computer, but the Zoom is all messed up.
Today. If we can try to go without the screen share if that's messing things up too much.
Uh, Yeah, let's see it.
No, can't. All right, now I can hear the room again.
All right, awesome.
So Ben,
Okay, now Kevin, I see that you're sharing my screen now, which is great, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, Ben.
Okay.
Yeah, you can hear me. Can you try?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, sorry.
Where are we at?
Yeah, can you try to share your screen again? See if it.
Sure.
That's good.
All right. How about now?
Choose tab to view.
We can-
View.
Worst case scenario, we could just send out the link to folks, or have them pull up the Zoom on their own devices to follow along that way.
Yeah, I think that'd be best.
Cool. Yeah. So here, I'll make a short link here. Here. Here's a short link. bit.ly/4R32PQV. That should get you there.
Yep, excellent. All right, we see people are joining, and just for the sake of recording, you want to start
Yeah.
over our prompts again?
Yeah, for sure. We can crop this part out.
Yeah, apologies, guys.
All right.
All right, Ben, so my question to you is, imagine we live in a world where teleportation has been invented. How would you bring it to market?
Sorry, would you like to share your link again?
Could you just put the doc up on the screen?
Yeah.
Right. All right, perfect.
Okay. Cool. So teleportation has been invented. How do we bring it to market? This is super interesting. First off, I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen, so hopefully, one way or another, y'all can see it. But yeah. Anyway, all right. This is very interesting. Very interesting technology I want to dive into. But first, I just want to understand, who are we? What entity are we? Are we a startup? Are we an established company? What are we?
You can assume that we're just a startup, and that
Got it.
and that we're the first folks who have decided to commercialize this.
Got it. Okay, so got it. The technology has been invented, but it has not been commercialized. Makes sense. My next question is, how does it work? Like, what is the mechanics by which an item or an individual would enter into teleportation? How is the destination chosen, and what does it look like at the destination when that item reaches the end?
Yep, so the way you can assume this is that the device you create is the size of a small classroom. You can put items or humans in it, and you can output the same item in person in its original form to a specific destination based on plugging any coordinates.
Got it. So you just enter into this small classroom and you put in coordinates. So just like a latitude and longitude.
Correct.
Is there also like the axis as well to indicate like the height that you want to put it at?
Yes, they'll have the z-axis, so you can choose height as well.
Got it. Okay. And so when it comes to like the cost of moving any item, teleporting any item from point A to point B, how is that determined? Is it volume? Is it mass? Is it the distance over which you're teleporting something? Like what are the marginal costs here?
Yeah, if we think marginal cost, you can assume that mass is not constrained. However, the cost of actually sending something will scale with distance. So for example, sending something 2 miles will be, say, twice the cost of sending something 1 mile.
Oops. Got it. Okay. Okay, got it. So, more distance is more expensive. I guess that's kind of how a lot of different forms of transportation work today. But that's really good to know. Let's see. I'm trying to think of any other. I think that the technology. Oh, and so what happens like at the end? Do you enter the coordinates? So like for somebody who's standing next to those coordinates, I guess just like the item would sort of materialize out of thin air.
Yep, you can assume that. Just for the sake of this question, if something happens to be in that same coordinates, you appear next to it, so there's no interference. You will be safe.
Got it. Okay. Um, some form of intelligent conflict resolution. Got it. Okay. This is very interesting. I think I have all the background I need. Could I take a minute to organize my thoughts?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Cool. So I've before we get into the actual tactics of how to bring to market, I think it's really important to first choose a very specific use case that we want to serve particularly well. And so I spent a little bit of time thinking, what are things that what are sort of industries or use cases where moving something even short distances would be very expensive or very difficult for one reason or another? Because we're not going to use this teleportation for like space travel because that's a really long distance. So to replace at least at first, like on a so if we're paying on a per mile basis, we would want to first focus on very expensive to move items short distances. And so one idea that came to mind was construction. Not that I'm a construction expert, but my intuition tells me that it's very difficult to if you're building a skyscraper to get something maybe not a far distance in terms of raw number of meters or whatever, but it's very expensive to get a crane to lift something up to the top of the building. So could we create an industrial application for teleportation in that sense? Another one that's a little bit more niche but could be really impactful is emergency rescue. Maybe an individual goes off trail on a ski lift, or gets lost in the woods in a national park. Having emergency rescue being able to find that person and then get to them can be really challenging. Or I'm thinking of the several years ago when a Thai soccer team got trapped in a cave. Could we just teleport in order to save them there? And then the third one, and I think this one's almost so obvious just because pretty much any advanced technology starts there, and that's military. Military applications. Yeah, I personally am not too familiar with the armed services, so it's hard for me to speak to this in too much detail beyond the Osama bin Laden American Manhunt documentary I recently watched. But I imagine it would have been a lot easier for American troops to get to Abbottabad if they could have just teleported from Jalalabad. So I think that this could have a lot of applications there. Now, I broke these down into reach in terms of how wide, like how many just quantity of applications there are. Impact, which is like per customer impacted, how different is this from their existing alternative to teleportation? And then the effort, what would be our effort in order to actually bring this product to market for this? Um, and so I think construction is a massive industry, but at the end of the day, this is a replacement for a crane. A crane seems to be a pretty well established solution. My hunch is that with such an advanced technology, we might actually be paying it might actually be more expensive on sort of a per meter basis to move rather than, there certainly could be applications here with such an incredible technology, but while it is such a big market, I'm questioning how impactful this is relative to the status quo. The next one for emergency rescue, this definitely is nowhere near as big as construction, but I think that right now having rangers being able to get out to save people like that can be really difficult. It can be dangerous for them to get there, and so if we can geolocate somebody and get someone out there really quickly to them, that could be hugely impactful to saving people's lives. And finally, for military, like I said, I'm not personally too familiar with this, but my if we are just a startup that's starting outside of the, I guess you could call it the military industrial complex, I tag this effort as very high just because there's so much red tape to cut through in order to secure a contract with the Department of Defense. I'm specifically looking at this from a U.S. centric context right now. I personally am not as familiar with this, so I'm gonna sort of just for the sake of me being able to speak to this in detail, we'll probably set that aside. And with all that, my inclination right now is to think of going with emergency rescue. I think this is something that's a lot better than the status quo, which is perhaps people going out and trying to send um and trying to get to people in a into hard to reach places. If we can get them out there quickly and safely, then this could be a really big benefit to the emergency rescue industry. So that's what I'm thinking right now. As a next step, what I'm thinking is maybe getting a little bit more into tactically. How would we go out, bring it to market, test our hypotheses, and figure out what the next steps are? How does that sound to you?
It sounds great. And just to make sure I'm clear, we are focusing on emergency rescue use cases, basically teleporting people to people who may be trapped or injured, and thus being able to provide services. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's one I think would like to focus on. I think the other ones certainly have benefits, but in order to stay laser focused on our customer, I just want to pick one at this time.
All right, excellent. Yep, I think we can move on.
Awesome. So let's think about the emergency rescue. So I'm thinking probably a lot of governmental agencies involved in this. So we have to think about how do we go to market in order to get into this. Maybe something like FEMA or other National Park Service. So I think probably something that would be quite important is to hire, I guess, either I don't know if it's like salespeople or lobbying or lobbyists that would be able to build relationships with the right people in order to bring this to market. So definitely like in hiring like salespeople slash lobbyists would be very important in order to eventually sell really at scale. I think something else that would be really important is figuring out how to create buzz. So I'm imagining if we could, maybe partner with one particularly high profile national park, maybe something like high profile national park, maybe something like Yosemite or Yellowstone. Um, somewhere like that, somewhere where emergency rescue is kind of like part of their sort of par for the course. Like it's not people go out camping in the woods and need help with us. Oh, something another uh, thing I thought of. There are also a lot of people who go sailing at sea. They'll like sail across the entirety of the Pacific, and they typically have satellite phones. And yeah, they need emergency at times. If they start taking on water, then they need emergency rescue, and that actually would be a really good use case, just because they actually have the latitude and longitude that they can communicate. Now that might be far distances, so it might be expensive, but the alternative is, sending like a military in order to go save them. So that could be another high profile partner in order to create buzz. So like rescue at sea. Um, yeah. So I think basically some combination of of bottoms up, which is like getting individuals into the government agencies that we would need to sell into, as well as the like top down. How do you create societal awareness of this incredible technology and the value that it can have? Yeah, so I think that that's how it would go to market, and hopefully from that, like start really what's important is starting off with small individual things, not biting off more than we can chew. Like we wouldn't start with trying to get a partnership with the entirety of FEMA. We would first start with maybe an individual use case like a rescue at sea or in a national park, and then try to grow from there.
All right, awesome. And Ben, I just had a quick question regarding your go-to-market strategy. What do you think would be one of the biggest pushbacks from people who may be at some of these organizations? Why would they, say no, or what would be their major concern?
Yeah, I think that the biggest question is just how is this well, probably the first one would be, is it a safe technology? Like, can the individuals that would need to go into it actually come out safely on the other side? I'm going to assume that this technology has been thoroughly tested, that it is truly safe. Like people. So I'm gonna set that aside and take that as given. If we can successfully get past those, I think that the next question is just like, is this necessarily better than the status quo? You know, as I'm talking about this, like emergency rescue, while on a global scale is happening a lot, like, is it necessarily something that happens with enough frequency to justify the fixed cost? We talked about the marginal cost, and I tried to fix on a use case of like getting to hard to reach places, but like, well, you need to have that classroom sized portal in a specific location, and if it isn't close to where people happen to get lost, then it might not actually be better than the status quo. So, like, is this we would need to probably get the price, both the price and the efficacy um better. We would need to get the price and the efficacy better than what they're currently doing, which is sending rangers out or helicopters or what have you.
All right, awesome.
Yeah. Was there any other pushback that you were imagining?
No, mainly I think you've covered both of them. Is it safe and is this actually worth the potential, high cost? But I think you've covered both.
Yeah.
All right.
Um, Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, what I'm thinking next is, what would be some sort of like, I guess, key metrics I'd want to make sure that I measure along the way. Or I was also thinking we could talk about like specific features that could be built for the emergency rescue use case. What would be most helpful for us to do next?
Let's start with the metrics. So let's assume this is up and running. We've managed to convince folks to actually use it. How would we measure success, and how do we make sure that our customers are using our products in our intended use case?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so to be clear, like we've landed this at different like emergency rescue locations, and so it's currently being used. So I think there's obviously the key business metrics like sales, return rates, like how often are our customers returning this. Also, in terms of customer metrics, I think like our customer support or customer success will be really key. Just like that, this is definitely going to be some like very hands-on. Like we'll almost certainly have some level of like professional services to help with installation and monitoring of it. And I think that that front line and that qualitative feedback that we get from them will be really important. But in terms of actual product metrics itself, I think maybe like number of uses per week, let's say. Maybe we're finding obviously this is intended for emergency rescue, and maybe the cost justifies that that's only for that reason. But if we see the number of uses per week is out of whack with our expectation of that, then well, maybe they're actually using it for other alternative applications that we hadn't anticipated. We would then want if we saw that, we would then want to investigate what exactly they're using it for. Another thing would be, maybe are we tracking like the mass and volume of the payload? Right. Maybe we're seeing that they are filling up the class or the box to the brim every time, and that could indicate to us, well, maybe we want to develop a bigger box to be able to transport larger payloads. Maybe that's only occupying a small portion of it. Maybe like someone just needs like a little bit of extra water. They're stuck in the woods and they just need some more water in order to sustain themselves. If they don't actually need a human there to rescue them. In that case, then maybe we look into product development into a smaller portal that could perhaps be lower, perhaps be lower cost. And then finally, the distance, right? Like what is the distance teleported on average? So, and what's the range of distributions, right? Like right now, it seems like it's just a straight linear cost of amount of distance, but it could our maybe we could adjust our price depending on what distances people normally send. Maybe we could adjust our pricing model into maybe something a little bit more tiered if we're seeing common use cases for quick short trips that maybe we could serve more cheaply and easily versus longer trips that are more difficult. So yeah, in terms of actual product metrics, I think number of uses, mass and volume of payload, and average distance are probably the primary ones that we would want to track.
All right, awesome. And Ben, do you have any, let's say, countermetrics for this technology? How do we make sure that people are actually using it for rescue? How do we make sure that people are, how do we make sure that we're actually doing a great job with our product?
Yeah. So just to make sure I understand your question, you're trying to understand, or we want to understand, like, what are they actually using it for? Like, what's the benefit that they're getting from it? Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, I could see a range of answers to that depending on the level of, I guess, uh, expectation of customer privacy versus our visibility into what it is that they're doing. And so, going back to the pushback from organizations, I wonder if this organization would be concerned that we could see what they are or are not using it for. So. Um, yeah, like the on the most intrusive end, we could like have cameras inside of the teleporter and see what are they putting in, and then we could have a pretty strong idea of what it is that they are doing. We could even, if we felt like this was really important and customers would be amenable to it, then we could require that they specifically indicate to us what it is that they are doing. So that would be the sort of like most programmatic way for us to understand the use cases. However, in the absence of that level of, I guess you could say, product intrusion. If our customers had some level of expectation of greater privacy, then we would probably more so need to rely on qualitative feedback that we get from customers in the form of customer support cases or our frontline salespeople or technical integration folks who are more closely working with the customers and can report back to us about their questions. Also, another qualitative source could be if they go to their salesperson and ask for additional features or additional capabilities that aren't currently supported.
Awesome.
I'm just recapping what we talked about here. Requiring a stating use case or our qualitative is like salespeople, customer support, technical integration, learning about new use cases. Yeah, cool.
All right, sounds good to me. And then next question, let's say we're very successful, we've filled out this use case. What's next, and what are some product extensions do you see beyond this original use case?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a couple different ways that we could go with this. We could expand horizontally and look back up at these segments or consider others that we think could benefit from teleportation and expand into other verticals. But that's more of like taking an existing product and expanding it horizontally. If we did want to then go build out new product features, we would of course take all of this feedback we discussed before. If I were to postulate as to where that might go, one thing that could be helpful is rather right now we just have a one-way teleporter. Could we turn it into a two-way teleporter? Could we somehow find a way to get people back, right? Because teleporting someone one way into the woods, if that person is fully equipped with everything they need to get back to society, then that's great. But if you teleport them onto a boat in the middle of the ocean, I'm not sure if you're actually really helping them in a meaningful way. So if we could, that's the most obvious product extension. Can you make it a two-way trip instead of a one-way trip? I think that could be applicable for a lot of different verticals, not just for emergency rescue. Um, let's see. Another thing I think I already mentioned is like different sizes of like teleporters, right? Maybe this could be a way to hack our way into a two-way trip, right? You go into your classroom, but then you bring with you in your classroom a like smaller telephone booth sized teleporter. So you teleport a teleporter into where you need to go, and then you go back from where you came. So that's probably a way to hack it. Another way would be, if we can get the technology to work at a bigger scale, then we could increase the size of the payload. You had said that the cost does not scale with mass and volume. So if the only constraint is the actual size of the original teleporter, then that could help to deliver more value at seemingly no incremental marginal cost. The more fixed cost of building the teleporter originally, but that could be really interesting. And I mean, if we want to get really crazy, what other features could we bring in? Like, could we have these teleporters start to fly? I don't really know about that. But yeah, I think these are the main things that come to mind. Different sizes of the teleporters, and then how do we turn it into a two-way trip?
Okay, awesome. Well, Ben, that's all the questions I had for you. Before we kind of get into a debrief, do you mind just wrapping this up, everything we've discussed, and your overall strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I take a minute just to organize my thoughts?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Um, and so should I like treat this as if like I'm the CEO of this startup and you're a venture capitalist considering investing?
Yep, I think that'd be great.
Awesome. In the United States alone, emergency rescue is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Thousands of people every year get lost and need assistance in order to get home safely. And public services spend billions of dollars to do that. Additionally, it is dangerous for these people to go out and rescue them. Not to mention that the person needing to be rescued is in danger as well. This incredible new teleportation technology is the best way for us to serve the public needs better and cheaper. We have a technology that is basically a box the size of a classroom that can get any size payload, no matter what particular distance. The size of the payload doesn't matter. All that matters is how far we teleport the people. Now, we think emergency rescue is a great use case for it because these are there's sort of set areas like national parks where it's common for people need to be saved, so you're not transported that far, but you're able to get people out there better, faster, and cheaper. Um, Once we launch, we're going to be really looking into see how do these national parks and other customers use this, both in terms of our qualitative feedback we learn from our folks working with them on the ground, as well as quantitatively in terms of how big are their payloads, where are they going, and how frequently are they using it. Pending that feedback and other sources, we're already looking into additional product extensions, such as how can we turn it into a two-way trip? And also, is this one classroom size necessarily the right size? Can we make smaller ones? Can we make bigger ones? So all in all, we're excited to go out there and help to save lives in the emergency rescue industry with teleportation.
All right, awesome. I'm ready to sign. Thank you. So Ben, I think we can take off our interviewee hats. First, thank you for bearing with us with all the tech stuff. Kellogg always surprises us. Before I give my feedback, what do you think you did well in this case? What do you think you can improve upon? And any question or any other tips you have for us as we do these cases?
Yeah, I think one thing I did well was let's see. There are a lot of things I could have done better on, but if I had to choose something that I did well, I think I did a pretty good job of defining what sort of like clearest metrics in terms of like uses, payload size, and distance. I think those are like the really core product metrics. I'm curious if you have feedback, but I feel pretty good in terms of how I laid out the metrics there.
I thought they were great. It is a technology that doesn't exist, so it's a matter of okay, how do we make sure that these metrics actually make sense? Like, yes, people are using it. It's not necessarily a good thing if people use it a lot, but I really like the way you broke it down: the business metrics, your customer metrics, and your product metrics. So it allows us to actually separate those things out. One thing I think you did great on is you defined our world really well. With things that don't exist, it's a matter of okay, what are the limitations? What are the constraints that we have? Like, hey, this only takes us one way. If I send someone far away and they're not prepared, we need to send another rescue team again. In terms of what you think you could have improved upon, is there any aspect or any part of the case where you thought, man, this could have been a little bit clearer or
Yeah.
precise?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, I candidly don't know if emergency rescue was the right segment to choose. I think I'm okay with it for the ones that we listed here, but in reality, like, would Yosemite National Park really buy a teleporter to get people out there? Especially because like you don't know where people are. You need lat long. So I think I did a good job of sort of like after choosing a less than ideal segment, making the best case for it. But I think in hindsight, if I could have taken a little bit more time to think it through, maybe construction would have been better. I just don't know if it was that much better than cranes. Maybe there's another segment that I'm not even thinking of, but I wish I'd done a little bit better in terms of brainstorming segments to target.
And Ben, one thing I really liked about your interview is you did mention military because that's where most of our technology advancements happen. One thing I liked that you point out was I'm not a domain expert here, therefore it probably would
And
be.
I'm also not a domain expert in emergency services, in case this case wasn't obvious enough for that.
Oh, no. My question to you is, as we do these cases, what's your opinion on making sure we are actually bringing our domain knowledge into these cases? Because sometimes it seems like there's
Yeah.
an easy answer, but on the other hand, it's like, do I know enough about it so I can be detailed and have that nuance?
Yeah. I think that accuracy is not particularly important here, right? Like when uh so one piece of background I should have shared about myself is that I conduct interviews at Google, and I have for several years. And um it's not very important to me, if I'm doing a product case about, a restaurant or something like that, like it's not particularly important to me if people have in-depth understanding of the economics of restaurants and specific things like that. It's more about like them just really clearly stating their assumptions at the end of the day. And so what I did here was I was like, all right, emergency rescue, we're going to go for it. I'm just going to state my assumptions that Yosemite has enough of a need to buy a teleporter in order to get emergency services to people out there. What if maybe Yosemite does it says three rescues a year, in which case, like the actual sort of facts on the ground completely don't align with this, but that's not the purpose of what a product case is meant to interview here. And I would hope, Kevin, that you wouldn't dock me for it, but what's ultimately important is that I stated my assumptions, and based on those assumptions, I followed a clear linear line of thinking.
All right, awesome. And Ben, do you have any feedback for me as an interviewer? Because for a lot of us, we're doing mocks for each other.
Yeah.
We're trying to get as many reps in. How do we make sure that I'm better simulating that experience for people so that when they get to the interview, it's not just a complete shock for others?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you did a really good job. Full disclosure, Kevin and I did meet earlier this week, and we actually had a chance to go over the case, and I brainstormed segments then. So if there's anybody for me to blame about segments, it's definitely on me. Kevin, it was hard to see your face here, and I think one piece of general advice I would give to everybody is respond to and interact with your interviewer. And frankly, I don't think that I did a great job of that here. Kevin, one thing that you could do is, and I like to say this at the beginning of my interviews, is I say like, hey, just so you know, like I'm going to be asking you some questions throughout the course of this interview. There might be a place where I jump in and ask clarifying questions or steer you in a different direction. That isn't to say you're doing a bad job. It's that it's your job to answer the questions, and it's my job to keep us on time and make sure we get through what we need to get through. So, Kevin, maybe if you had done something like that, then you could have been more empowered to jump in and challenge my assumptions in the moment and to frankly like break my flow and see how I respond in there rather than me doing what I did was I sort of just like went into a lab and cooked for like 10 minutes there. Like having my advice to both interviewers and interviewees is to try to make it more interactive.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, I think I was just a little frazzled from all the IT stuff, so apologies.
Yeah.
All right, I think we have about 10 minutes left. I know some of you guys may have interviews coming up, or you may have gotten some questions during this session. I just want to open it up. Anyone have anything they want to ask Ben? Yes, Josh.
I just want to like pick your brain a little bit because like you generated a lot of ideas and thoughtful responses along the way without really taking any moment to pause and think. And that fluency is something I'm particularly struggling in. So I guess like in your mind, were you thinking of what to say next as you were speaking your current thought, or was it like rapid go go go, like you just built on
Yeah.
top of the next one? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just off the top of the dome all the time. No, so I think there were a couple of moments when I did take a moment to think. I think you're probably referring more to like this section here, where I was just sort of like, frankly, just live thinking my way through it, right? So, yeah. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Like in particular, like the success criteria was pretty cool because like I liked how you had some structure where you focused on business, customer, and support, and then you kind of filled in the gaps there. But like,
Yeah.
do you tend to use that some sort of framework or structure to formulate your response, or is it like?
Yeah, that's a good question. Something that I do in product cases, and frankly, all the time as a product manager, is I'm constantly thinking about the triad of business, customer, technology. Like everything is about those three circles, and how those things interact. And not representing any one of those in a product case, but means that you're not fully representing the perspective of a product manager. So yeah, just me saying like the first thing is start out with business metrics. Like that was something where that was pretty clear for me to start because like if you're a startup and your technology is ready and you need to go to market, the first place you start getting feedback from is who do you sell to and who don't you sell to. That's just sort of I guess intuitively what made sense to me. From there, I just sort of started talking and thinking more about, okay, I'm a park ranger at Yosemite. I have this new technology. Like, what am I actually doing? How frequently, like, what am I putting it in there? How far? And then, like, just sort of intuitively came to me. I think the broader point I'll make about this, and I made in the beginning, is that frameworks are helpful to the extent that they help you communicate your product thinking and sort of flex your creativity, you know? And for me, when I have like business, customer, technology, then within each of those buckets, I can flex my creativity within those. So I'd encourage you all to do the same.
Anyone else? Yes.
Generally for cases, how do you get a sense for like when to ask like a lot of hypothetical questions and try to get clarity versus make assumptions? I understand like for this case, obviously it's like a brand new technology, so you kind of want to understand the parameters, but in general, is it kind of interviewee based in terms of like how much they want you to kind of go off something that's more open-ended versus like them wanting to see you kind of define the hypothetical situation more?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the amount of background that Kevin needed to give me here is actually not necessarily representative of a more typical product case. Because this was so new and there were so many unclear assumptions, I needed to ask him for it. In reality, when I'm conducting interviews and people ask me for clarifying questions, people are like, "What is our goal here?" I typically say like, what do you think the goal of a startup is, like, and I sort of put it back on them. So typically product cases are a lot more interviewee led, and the interviewee is asked to make a lot more assumptions. So I'd say like if you just think there's something like really fundamental that without this like you could be going way off script by making an assumption, then check. Or what you can always do and say like, hey, what I'm assuming is that like the mass is what's costly for us, or I'm assuming that there's a portal on each end. Like, is that fair to say? And then just check in there. And whenever you are making an assumption, clearly state it, and ask for and say like, is this okay? Is it okay if I make this assumption about this technology?
Possibly.
I see Parul on Zoom has her hand up.
Yeah, I have one quick question. Just wanted to get your thought process on how prioritization would happen amongst like reach impact. Like looking at this, I would feel that like the first two segments have high and low amongst reach and impact, whereas the third segment has medium and high amongst reach and impact. So I would see that to be prioritized than the first two segments. Or we are also like, because of the effort being very high, we want to go towards the uh, second option. Just
Yeah, I think you said it exactly. Like ultimately, my the very high threshold that I saw is going into military, and I think I sort of stated like I'm not super interested in talking about military applications, and I didn't feel comfortable doing so given my own knowledge. So I kind of just personally wanted to steer away from that because I didn't want to talk about military applications. So I put effort as very high, and that was my explanation for it. Um, one quick thing I do want to call out, and I sort of intentionally did this, and this is probably part of the reason why I chose emergency rescue. I kind of chose this segment to make a point. So many times when people prioritize, they're just like, "Oh, this is the biggest segment, so let's go after it." Frankly, it happens at Google, it happens everywhere. Oh, biggest market, let's go after it. Especially when you're a new technology or a new company getting off the ground, a segment could be huge, but if their needs are being well met, then your product is dead in the water, right? You'd much rather, like, they say niches get riches, right? You find a really specific use case, even if it's small, but if you can deliver significant value above the status quo, then you'll actually be able to make sales and grow your product and your business. Then you could start to learn, okay, what's a bigger segment we could go towards? But I so much reward candidates when they point out, how is this product actually better than the status quo, even if it is a smaller segment?
Excellent.
I think a part of like go-to-market is also like commercialization and pricing strategy. Is that something that like we kind of wait for the interviewer to prompt us in that direction, or like is it okay to kind of start talking about it as well?
I'm sorry, could someone repeat the question? I got about half of that.
Yeah. I guess a part of like go-to-market is also pricing decisions and how would you like
Yeah.
commercialize this particular product. So would you say that you would kind of like rely on the interviewer to lead you in that direction, or like proactively kind of prompt it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, like, I wouldn't have expected to get into actual dollars and cents for pricing. Um, my intuition tells me that isn't really what a product interviewer is trying to test. Like, can you price it? I mean, maybe I could have said like different pricing strategies, like a cost plus pricing strategy versus the competitive pricing strategy versus a value based pricing strategy. I perhaps could have I think I sort of briefly skirted past it by talking about like the alternative costing X, like can we actually be less expensive than that? But I suppose I could have been a little bit more explicit about a pricing strategy, but I would not get into dollars and cents if that unless the interviewer explicitly asks for it. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yep. All right, one more. Yep.
And then you chose to share your screen. Was that just for the sake of this exercise with us, or do you find that interviewers ever do that?
Great question. Interviewees rarely ever do it. And frankly, at the end of the day, I like this really works for me. For me, I really like the idea of sharing my own thinking in a visual way with an interviewer, especially now that all all interviews are done virtually, basically. Like, so taking a step back, I was at Kellogg 2019 to 2021, so obviously during COVID. My pre-Kellogg career was in consulting, and so in consulting, for anybody, I don't know, you all probably were, maybe we're graduating from college in COVID, but the way it used to work is you sit down in a room with a consultant from Bain or McKinsey or whatever, and they're like, oh, here's the thing, and then you go and you like write out your framework on your page, and then you literally like turn your paper around and show. So here's my framework. I'm going to talk about company, customer, competition, and you like walk through them like that. So my background in case interviewing was always having a shared visual medium with the with the interviewer. This is my way of doing it now, and I think it is super effective for me personally. Other people don't do it. I personally am comfortable with talking and typing at the same time. A lot of other people aren't. And so at the end of the day, I'd say figure out what works for you. If it's something you want to try, do not do it live with a real company at first. Practice, practice, practice. Like actually get onto a virtual meeting, even though you all are obviously there in person. Like get onto a virtual meeting. If your interview is going to be on Zoom, do it on Zoom. If it's going to be on Teams, do it on Teams. Google Meet, whatever. Get used to it, and you'll practice talking and typing at the same time. For me, just having that shared visual medium is a great way to force me to organize my thinking and to create a level of shared understanding with my interviewer.
All right, awesome. And Ben, we got a minute left. I'll give the floor to you. Any parting words, parting wisdom, any motivational speeches you want to make? It's all you.
The best asset that you all have in product casing interviewing is the other people in the room there with you. Find an interview buddy. Do your practice cases. Start off really anchoring on those frameworks, but eventually, as you feel more and more comfortable with the frameworks, remember that they are a guide and a tool to help you flex and demonstrate your own product thinking and creativity. At the end of the day, if you as an interviewee are having fun, then hopefully the interviewer is having fun too. I conduct a lot of interviews. Some of them are fun, and it's so exciting to see where the person's going to go. And I leave it saying like, yeah, let's go build the product. And if you by practicing more, you all can get to that level.
All right, awesome. Everybody, please. And Ben, we'll work to get the recording to you, and we can stop it. But thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Kellogg's a very special place. I'm jealous of you all that you get to spend so much time in the hub, make every moment of it. And, best of luck. Hit me up on LinkedIn and take care. Have a great rest of your Friday.
Thank you.